The one chip that we all thought was certain was going to happen outside of Ibisevic was Nabil Bentaleb. But today is deadline day. There were some moves we were hoping for, some moves that we thought could happen, may not happen. It was interesting one, right? So I'll share the screen here with the moves that did happen here. Moves that happened and moves that people who came, people who left, right? So first with the guy that exits, we obviously knew Fida Ibisevic his contract was torn up. Nick Tatigui, same thing with him. He was let go from the club. But over this last month or so, Robbie Matanda would move to Stoke City on a loan. The Free Katucci movement would move to Heracles Almelo in the Dutch league, and he would get an assist in his first game there. And they've won their first 2 games since he's been there, but not really necessarily his fault or his contributions, I should say. But the big fish, Ozan Kabak, it was official today, moved to Liverpool on a loan with the option to buy. The option to buy, I think, is for 30 million euros. It's not an obligation; it's an option. But all indications are that Liverpool will take that option at the end of the season. And if they do, it will be a 5-year contract. And I think that it's going to be a loan of something like 1.5 million to 2.5 million euros or pounds, I should say. First off, what are your thoughts on the move about Kabak to Liverpool?
Well, not thrilled about it, obviously.
Sure.
It very much seems to be something that's being done for one of 2 reasons, possibly both. One of which is just the financial situation of the club. And we got rid of Weston McKennie because of our need for that that money. And this, I'm sure this is obviously going to be a very helpful sum if we do sell Ozan Kabak. But on the other hand, it almost kind of strikes me as like a relegation thing. Like, we're already going down, let's put him in the shop window and then try to like sell him to somebody. I don't know. It's a little bit frustrating, but whatever. I mean, I believe in him still. He hasn't had the best year for us, and I think he's been at times a little bit immature, but that's going to come with the territory. He's still super young. I believe in his talent, and I think he can have a great career. And Schalke's I don't think it's the place for him at this point in time, unfortunately. I was surprised that he joined us in the first place from Stuttgart, given how badly we had been performing around that time anyway, because he had been linked to bigger clubs. And so this was probably always going to be a stepping stone. You would have hoped to see, hey, if we had been playing better qualifying for the Champions League, maybe we could actually held on to this guy for a bit. But it's probably best for him that he moves on anyway. And, hopefully he gets some time with Liverpool and impresses, and we can get a nice fee for the guy. Yeah.
Last season, he was arguably our best defender, one of our best players overall. I think he had some moments where he just looked like a dominant center back, both offensively and defensively. This year, he's been quite the opposite, struggled a lot, didn't do well in many games, played okay, but far from what we saw last season. And a lot of it, a great part of that is because the whole team has played poor. So no one is going to look good. There's not many people outside of the goalkeepers that are going to look good during this stretch of games for the team, even them, right? It was inevitable that they were going to lose, especially with the massive amount of debt we're in. We were have to sell some players. And I remember seeing you saying something. I don't remember where it was, but our 2 biggest assets, going into this year was Weston McKennie, who we loaned with a option to buy, and now Ozan Kabak, right? So that was almost inevitable for that to happen. So I'm upset because overall it does kind of maybe feel like a downgrade. Maybe it's more time for Thiaw. One of the questions we got from Jake on Twitter said, now with Ozan Kabak moving on, do you think this would be more time for Malik Thiaw to get more starting time, or instead of Mustafi? Because not many people. Mustafi's the other person who came from Arsenal, tore up his contract. Arsenal, we get him on a free to the end of the season. First, your thoughts on the possibility of Thiaw getting more minutes at center back, and then on the move for Mustafi.
He could. He's been in a couple of different positions. We saw him come into like defensive midfield late in the game against Bremen.
Yeah,
right back as well.
He's versatile defensively.
Exactly. So, I don't know how much this particular move impacts his playing time. Salif Sane is probably coming back at some point anyway, so he would probably get the nod ahead of Malik Thiaw. And as you said, Malik Thiaw is versatile enough where he's going to get opportunities at various times, I think, regardless. The Mustafi thing. So here's the thing for that. I mean, it's nice that this was facilitated in that way so that he could negotiate with us. So they tore up his contract so that we didn't miss the deadline or anything like that. And we don't have to pay a transfer fee for him or anything. And, but he's basically just joining us for, the end of the season. And like credit to Schneider for obviously not just giving KABAK away without finding a replacement first. Like credit to him for actually doing due diligence and bringing somebody else in. But, it's just hard to be excited about it because basically what we're doing is just absorbing Arteta castaways. I mean, like, there's a bunch of players that are leaving Arsenal right now in this window. It's Mesut Ozil, it's Kolasinac, it's Mustafi. I think maybe Willock and Maitland-Niles might be on the move as well. Like, there's a bunch of players that are leaving from Arsenal, and so these are not like, hey, it's a great bit of business. Like, look who we just picked up. It's like they don't want these guys, and Arsenal fans are actively celebrating the exodus of Mustafi at the moment.
Yeah.
So what I'll say about this finally is like, if we get the very best out of this guy for a couple months, his best form, then it's a great signing. And it's actually an improvement over Ozan Kabak because at times this guy has shown that he has, great ability back, 2014 World Cup and his time in Spain prior to that Arsenal move when his ceiling seemed to be very high. He just hasn't shown it consistently enough in his time at Arsenal. So, I mean, who knows? I hope that he's in better form or somehow the Bundesliga is more his level than what the Premier League was or whatever. And he can actually help out and contribute. We'll have to wait and see. But on its face, it just seems like, super talented, young, promising center back in the shop window for, a 28-year-old who we're probably actually not going to sign permanently. It's just, it's tough.
Oddly enough, the German international is first time playing for a German team, I think. So that's an interesting one there. I like what Lars says, or I agree with what Lars says about KABAK. It seemed like all season long that KABAK, his head was already joined with another team. It wasn't seem like he was in it completely. And we saw those random red cards and yellow cards almost every game. Something he was doing that seemed like he wasn't quite there. And maybe just me looking at it, or maybe just Lars looking at it, but that's what it seemed like, at least from afar. A name that we thought was going to go. We'll get to that person here. Let's look at the players that did come in. Obviously, we know Kolasinac is in, Mustafi, Huntelaar, William that we talked about last week. Matthew Hoppe did sign an extension through 2023, so at least we're not going to lose him on a free right now. So
I
mean, it's good. It's good. I'm glad about that. Go ahead.
We're not going to lose him on a free yet. I mean,
yet.
There's almost certainly going to happen, but yeah.
So that's a good bit of business there, and I think overall, kind of like what you said, if we end up not getting relegated, and all these moves by Schneider are going to look really good, right? Because we got a bunch of players for free: Huntelaar, Mustafi, Kolasinac, William, guys who we don't have to necessarily pay right now. It's going to look good, but if we don't, obviously, it's going to be like, okay. I mean, it's still a bit of decent business there, I think, overall. But I think the one chip that we all thought was certain was going to happen outside of Ibisevic was Nabil Bentaleb. We thought that he was going to move on to another team. That was almost a guarantee to everybody, every person in Schalke Nation. And then deadline day came and went, and he's still a Schalke player. What the heck? I thought it was less like chance of Harit to leave than him. Or, I mean, what?
I'm calling it right now. We're gonna have Huntelaar and Nabil Bentaleb in the starting XI against Wolfsburg.
Both are gonna score
in the DFB. As far as I'm aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, we still have received zero details as to why Nabil Bentaleb was suspended earlier in the year.
Yeah,
have we? Did I just miss that? We had some indication of what the reason was for Harit, but Bentaleb, it was always kind of a mystery. There didn't seem to be a lot of transparency around that. So I don't know, but it's interesting that you mentioned, because like you said, they did say that they expected him to find a club. Is it that no one wants him and we're just like really struggling to find somebody that can move, or
I know there were some Serie A teams that were interested in him, but maybe the prices they wanted less, and Schalke were trying to get too much. I don't know, and they finally said, "Yeah, now we're done. We're good. We're not going to take him." That's the only thing I could think of.
And I can't imagine that would be the case though, because they have no plans to play him anyway. So you'll take whatever you can get from him at this point. Otherwise, it's just a dead asset you're going to lose eventually.
Yeah,
it's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's first out of all the moves that happened or didn't happen, I thought this was the most strange one, because I thought for certain if he's not playing, he's not even involved in the first team, why are you going to keep the guy around? You're just paying the guy for nothing. Maybe someone can take him off your hands, and I don't know.
And you would have thought it would have happened earlier in the window too, because he had time to prepare for it and be talking to clubs and be shopping him out in advance of the window. So once you got like a week or two into it, and you're like, haven't heard anything on that, that's kind of concerning, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. The spare wheel says, is it short-sighted that all the January signs have been only for until the end of the season?
I think it's
I don't. But a little bit, yeah. But I think there's also that. What if we do get relegated? And they won't have these players on the books, right? You'd rather go into this fight the Bundesliga if you had to, with less players on the books, and then you have some freedom to do something with the youngsters. Maybe, I mean, it's kind of like Arsenal's situation where they're trying to offload people that they can't afford anymore.
I mean, my understanding is that there's been comments that have been made recently that suggest that if we do get relegated, we're fire selling the squad.
Oh yeah, it'd be Schalke 2 basically.
So I mean, you wouldn't have any of these people anyway, is what I'm saying. I mean, like Mustafi wouldn't have come if he was signing more than just the end of the year. You know what I mean? These things are conditional. Huntelaar's retiring. Yeah. So I mean, he's not. So you're not going to sign him either way. And then in Kolasinac, yeah, I mean, he probably still has ambition. I don't know. Maybe he is going to stay here. It doesn't seem likely. I feel like he might still have ambitions elsewhere. Who knows? But yeah, it's not fun to think about because it just sounds increasingly like we're kind of gearing up for this, and it's not going to be pretty, and it's going to be a very different looking team and a whole situation. Yeah. And